The sun was sinking behind the jagged ridge when Elias Rourke rode into the outskirts of Driftwood Creek, slumped in the saddle like a man who had lost the strength to hold himself upright. His coat was torn, his arm pressed to his ribs, and dried blood clung to his collar like rust on old iron. He had been running since dawn, pushing his horse harder than he should have, but he knew stopping in the open meant death. The Dalton gang was close, too close. Elias didn't come for help, nor did he expect any. He had lived too many years learning that people only cared when it benefited them. So when his horse staggered, then collapsed under him, Elias let out a low curse and pushed himself upright. Pain burned through his side, but he forced his legs to hold. He scanned the horizon. No lanterns, no townsfolk, just a narrow path leading deeper into the woods. That was when he heard it, soft footsteps, slow and careful, like someone who didn't want to startle a wounded animal. A woman stepped into the dusky clearing. She wore a simple blue dress, an apron dusted with dried herbs, and a satchel slung across her shoulder. Her hair was pulled back in a loose braid, and her eyes were calm, steady, and far more observant than her gentle face revealed. "You're hurt," she said quietly, stopping several feet away. Elias stiffened. "I don't need help." "You can say that," she replied, "but your body disagrees." He tried to step away, but his leg buckled. Before he fell, she moved forward with surprising speed and caught his arm. He tried to pull free, but her grip was firm and kind. "My cabin is close," she said. "If you stay here, you won't last the night." He studied her face, searching for a lie, a trap, anything that confirmed what he already believed: trust no one. But there was nothing, just honest concern and a strange sort of bravery. "Why help me?" he asked through gritted teeth. She tilted her head. "Because you need it." Elias hesitated, his vision blurred, the trees swayed, and the world tilted. He didn't have strength to argue anymore. So he let the stranger guide him toward a narrow trail hidden between the pines. "What's your name?" he asked weakly. "Mara Talbot." He nodded once. "Elias." She didn't press for more. Didn't ask who he was or why he was bleeding. She simply steadied him, step by careful step, until a small cabin came into view, warm lamplight shining from within. As they crossed the threshold, Elias felt his knees give. The room spun, and before darkness swallowed him, he heard Mara's soft voice, calm even as he collapsed onto her floor. "You're safe now. I'll take care of you." But outside, far off in the distance, hoofbeats echoed through the valley. The Dalton gang was still hunting. Elias woke to the crackle of fire and the scent of pine drifting through the warm air. For a moment he did not know where he was. His eyes opened, slowly adjusting to the soft glow of lamplight filling the small quiet room. He lay on a narrow bed covered with a thick quilt softer than anything he had rested on in years. The ceiling beams above him were smooth and clean-shaped by time and careful hands. Dried herbs hung from the rafters, mint sage and yarrow filling the cabin with a calm, steady fragrance. Then he heard her. "You are awake." Mara stood beside the bed, sleeves rolled up, hands stained with salves and tinctures. Her expression was calm, but her eyes held that sharp, assessing look he had noticed before. The look of someone who saw more than most. Elias tried to sit, but pain burned through his ribs and forced him back down. Mara stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Do not move yet. You lost a lot of blood." He let out a rough breath. "Seems I still have some left." "Enough to argue, at least," she answered. He looked down and saw clean bandages wrapped around his side. Careful straight stitching held the wound together. "You did this?" Mara nodded. "The bullet grazed you but tore deep. You were lucky it did not break the rib." Elias studied her. She was not afraid of him. She asked nothing he was not ready to give. She simply worked. "How long was I out?" "Almost a full day," she said. "Your fever broke this afternoon." He frowned. "You stayed here the whole time." "Someone had to." He felt uneasy at the thought. Kindness was unfamiliar and it left him unsure of himself. She moved to the stove and ladled warm broth into a cup. "Drink. It will help." He hesitated but took it. The heat eased the ache deep in his bones. Mara sat on a small stool beside him. "Someone was chasing you, wasn't they? You ask questions now." "I did not before because you were barely breathing. But I am not blind. That wound was not from an accident." Elias stared into the fire. Men you do not want to meet. And they do not stop once they start hunting. Will they come here? Yes. If they followed this far, they will keep following. She nodded as if danger was already expected. Then we will be ready. He looked at her surprised. You do not even know me. I know enough, she said. You are hurt. You are alone. And you did not choose this fight. Elias had no answer. The wind outside brushed against the cabin walls. A lone coyote cried in the distance. For the first time in many years, he felt something close to safety. Not the whole of it, but the first edge of it. Rest now, she said. There will be time for running later. And for the first time, Elias was not certain he wanted to run anymore. Elias woke again in the quiet hours before dawn. A faint blue light pressed through the cabin window and the fire had burned down to glowing coals. His ribs ached and his muscles were heavy, but his mind was sharper than before. Sharp enough to remember why he should not be here. Danger followed him like a shadow, and shadows did not stop at cabin doors. He pushed himself upright, ignoring the pull of pain. He had to leave. He had stayed too long. He had put the healer at risk, and she did not deserve that. The wooden floor creaked softly. Mara shifted in the chair where she had fallen asleep beside the stove. Her braid hung loose and light from the fire warmed her face. She had watched over him all night. Again. Elias turned away. He did not want to see that kind of kindness. Kindness made roots. Roots made a man slow. A slow man died. He reached for his boots. Pain shot through his ribs and he froze with a low groan. You should not be up yet. Her voice was soft but steady. She stood now, blanket around her shoulders, eyes half worried, half resigned. You are not healed. I can't stay, he said. He moved again and winced. Mara stepped closer. If someone is hunting you, then leaving now would kill you. Your body is not ready. Elias shook his head. They will come. They always do. Then we will face that when the time comes, she said, calm as wind over dry grass. He stared at her. Most people would have pushed him out the door already. Most people would have demanded answers or run from him. But she stayed. And worse than that, she expected him to stay too. Why are you helping me? Mara took a slow breath. There was a traveler once. A man who needed help. I turned him away. He died before morning. Her eyes flickered with a memory she did not explain. I do not turn people away anymore. Silence settled between them. Heavy but not uncomfortable. Elias lowered himself back on the bed. Not because he agreed, but because he could not stay on his feet. Mara knelt beside him, checking the bandage with steady hands. He felt the shift in the air, the quiet determination in her movements. You think you can fix everyone, he said. No, she answered. But I can try to keep one man alive today. Her words held no pity, only purpose. Outside, the wind carried the distant echo of hooves. Faint but real. Elias heard it. Mara heard it. He met her eyes. They are close. Her face did not change. Then you need to heal faster. For the first time, Elias almost smiled. Almost. He was a hunted man. But in this small cabin hidden by pines, he was no longer running alone. The morning rose pale and cold over the valley. Frost clung to the grass outside the cabin and a thin fog drifted between the trees. Inside, Mara checked the herbs drying by the window while Elias tried to stand again, testing how much strength his battered body had regained. He was improving, but he was far from ready. He felt it in the tight pull of his ribs, in the weakness still clinging to his limbs, and in the heavy weight of dread settling over him. Because danger was not simply coming, it was already here. Mara paused in her work, her gaze turning toward the window. Do you hear that? Elias listened. At first there was nothing but wind sliding over the pines. Then faintly a crack of a branch, a distant snort of a horse, and the low murmur of men speaking. Voices carried only when someone was too close. They found me, he said. No fear in his tone. Just acceptance. Mara looked at him calmly. Tell me who they are. He took a breath. The Dalton gang. 3 brothers and the men who follow them. Wanted in 4 states. I rode with them once. Not by choice. When they wanted me to join them for a raid, I said no. They don't let anyone walk away. Mara studied him. So they hunt you because you refused to be like them. Elias nodded. How many are coming? At least 5, maybe more. Enough to burn this place down if they think I am inside. Mara straightened her shoulders. Then we prepare. He stared at her. The woman had no fear. Or perhaps she did, but carried it in a different way. Quiet, steady, brave. Mara began moving through the cabin, gathering things with calm efficiency. A kettle of water. A jar of powdery herbs that stung the nose. A length of cloth. Bundles of dried mint and sage. And from a locked drawer a rifle that looked older than she was. Elias blinked. You know how to use that. My father taught me, she said. And I do not like violence. But I will not let men like that walk through my door. Elias felt something shift inside him. He had spent years believing no one would ever stand beside him. Yet here she was, a woman alone in a cabin in the woods, facing danger without so much as a tremble in her hands. We cannot fight them head on, he said. They outnumber us. Then we use the land, she replied. There is a narrow pass behind the cabin. Anyone who tries to approach from there will have to come single file. If we make them slow, we buy time. If we buy time, you heal more. If you heal more, you survive. You think like someone who has seen too much, he said. Mara paused, her hands tightening on the cloth. Everyone has a past. Yours just bleeds a little louder than mine. A silence settled between them. Not heavy. Not awkward. Simply honest. Outside the voices grew louder. Hoofbeats pressed into the cold morning earth. The men were close. Very close. Elias steadied himself. The storm had reached the cabin. There was no turning back now. The sound of hoofbeats grew clearer in the cold morning air. Slow, measured, heavy. The rhythm of men who were not searching anymore. Men who had found what they came for. Elias stood near the window, bracing himself with one hand against the wall. He was pale, but there was fire in his eyes now. The kind of fire a wounded man carries when there is no more running left in him. Mara placed a steady hand on his arm. You do not need to fight. You are not ready. If I do not fight, he said, then they will take you too. They will hurt you to get to me. Mara shook her head. They will not cross this door. Not while I am standing. Elias looked at her the way a man looks at something he does not understand. You are risking your life for me. You should let me go. No one walks away bleeding while I am here, she said simply. Not again. He wanted to ask what again meant, but there was no time. The cabin grew silent. Then a heavy fist pounded on the door. Open up. We know he is in there. Elias closed his eyes. The Dalton brothers. He could hear the smug confidence in their tone. The cruelty waiting underneath. Mara stepped toward the door, but she did not open it. Instead, she lifted her father's rifle and planted her feet firmly on the wooden floor. This land is private, she said. Leave now. A harsh laugh answered her. We do not take orders from some little cabin girl. Send the man out and maybe we let you walk away. Mara stood still, unmoving, steady as stone. Elias wanted to reach her, wanted to pull her back from the danger on the other side of the wall, but his legs refused to move. The men outside shifted. The rustle of saddles, metal clinking, hands on guns. Mara stepped closer to Elias, her voice low enough only he could hear. When they come from the left, I want you to stay behind me. Do not try to fight. Not yet. He stared at her. You do not have to protect me. She met his eyes. Someone should. For a moment Elias felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Trust. Or something close to it. Outside boots hit the ground. More than one. They were spreading out, circling the cabin. Waiting for the right angle. Waiting to break the door. Mara breathed slow and even. Elias braced against the wall. The morning light crept across the floor inch by inch, as if hesitant to touch the fear in the room. Then the silence broke. A window shattered. A gun cocked. Voices shouted. The Dalton gang made their move. And inside that small wooden cabin Mara and Elias stood together. Not ready. Not strong. But unwilling to surrender. The storm eased as morning spread across the valley. Reed stepped outside the cabin, testing his strength. His ribs ached, but he could stand without support. Alara watched from the doorway, her hands resting on the frame as if she was ready to catch him if he stumbled. Reed said he planned to ride out soon, and she nodded, though her eyes shifted away. She told him breakfast was ready and he followed her inside. The silence felt different now, heavier but not unwelcome. Something waited between them, something that had been building since the night she dragged him off the trail. After they ate, Reed finally spoke. He said that the men hunting him were not bounty hunters. He said they were after him because he had tried to stop a crime in their gang and that he barely escaped alive. He admitted he had no one to turn to and no place safe to go. Alara listened without moving. When he finished, she said she already knew he was not the kind of man they claimed he was. She said a guilty man would not fight to protect others even while bleeding out. Reed looked at her surprised. No one had ever believed in him so quickly, so simply. Then Alara shared her secret. She told him she was hiding too. Not from the law but from a man who wanted to claim her land through force and fear. She said she stayed deep in the hills for her own safety and because she did not want anyone else caught in her trouble. Reed stepped closer. He told her trouble had already found him and that running alone only made it worse. He said two people standing together had a better chance than one standing alone. She looked up with unsure eyes, but she did not move back. The air between them shifted like the world grew still, waiting on their next breath. Alara finally said that if they faced their dangers together, then they would both need to trust in something neither had trusted before, another person. Reed nodded slowly, telling her he was willing if she was. Outside, the wind moved softly through the pines as if sealing the promise forming between them. For the first time since either of them could remember, neither one felt alone. Reed spent the morning repairing his gear while Alara checked her traps along the creek. The sky stayed clear, but a strange stillness settled over the hills. Even the birds kept quiet as if they sensed something approaching. When Reed finished tightening the cinch on his saddle, he felt eyes on him. He turned toward the ridge above the cabin. A figure stood between the pines watching. Reed froze. The man did not move, but Reed recognized the stance. One of the riders who had chased him through the canyon. He called for Alara. She appeared fast, her hands steady even though her breath caught when she saw the shadow on the ridge. She asked how they found him and Reed said they probably followed his trail from the storm, but he feared they were not only after him now. If they saw the cabin they would think she sheltered him and that made her a target too. Alara said they had to prepare. Reed nodded and they moved with quiet purpose. She secured her supplies. He checked his revolver and knife. The air thickened with tension, but neither panicked. They had already survived too much alone to fall apart now. The figure on the ridge finally turned and disappeared into the trees. Reed said that meant more were close. They would not come in daylight. Men like that preferred darkness where fear did half their work for them. Alara stood beside him watching the tree line. She said she trusted him to guide their next steps. Reed felt the weight of that trust settle in his chest. He told her they would make a stand if forced, but he would not let harm reach her. As evening settled, the wind shifted, bringing the scent of horses and distant dust. Reed whispered that the riders had arrived. Alara stepped inside the cabin and extinguished the lantern. Reed stayed near the door, eyes fixed on the ridge where the shadows gathered thicker and darker. Night fell slow, heavy and silent. Somewhere out there horses moved. And the danger that hunted them both finally closed in. Darkness wrapped the cabin like a heavy blanket while Reed listened to the distant crunch of hooves in the dry grass. The riders were close now, close enough that Alara could hear them too. She stood near the table, her breath steady but her hands ready. Reed told her to stay low and stay behind him no matter what happened. A faint glow flickered through the trees, the riders carrying lanterns as they moved in a slow circle around the cabin. Reed counted at least 4, maybe more, hidden in the shadows. They were not rushing, not charging. They wanted to frighten them first. Men like that took pleasure in fear. Reed cracked the door open just enough to watch without being seen. He recognized the leader by the way he sat tall in the saddle. A man named Cray, a tracker who worked for anyone willing to pay for trouble. Cray had chased Reed across half the territory and now he had followed him to the woman who had shown him mercy. Alara whispered, asking if they wanted money or revenge. Reed said they wanted to drag him back for a bounty he never earned. But Cray would not leave a witness behind. That meant the cabin was in danger because of him. The riders dismounted and spread out. Reed closed the door quietly and whispered that they had only a few seconds before the men tried to break in. Alara reached for the old iron bar that braced the door. Reed took his position facing the window where he knew the first gunshot would come. A heavy fist pounded against the wood. A voice called out, telling Reed to come out and spare the girl. Reed stayed silent. The pounding grew harder. A window shattered. Alara ducked while Reed raised his gun but held his fire waiting for a clear shape. The night exploded with shouts as the riders rushed the cabin. Reed fired a warning shot that struck the doorframe inches from Cray's hand. The men pulled back, surprised he was ready. Reed moved fast, guiding Alara behind the small stone wall near the hearth. Bullets tore through the boards. Dust filled the air. But Reed kept his mind steady. He knew the land better than the men outside. He whispered a plan to Alara, telling her they would slip out the back and move toward the creek where the darkness was deepest. She nodded, trusting him without hesitation. The riders regrouped outside, preparing for another push. Reed checked the shadows behind the cabin. The moment had come to run. And if they failed, they would not see the morning. The first light of dawn crept over the ridge, turning the sky pale gold and lavender. Reed and Alara crouched behind the thick brush along the creek. Their breaths came heavy but steady. The night had been long and violent, but they had survived. For now, the riders were gone or hidden somewhere deeper in the hills. Reed scanned the valley. Broken branches and hoofprints marked the path of the attackers. He traced the tracks silently, measuring how far they had gone. Alara watched him work. She had never seen anyone so quiet, so deliberate. She felt a strange mix of fear and admiration. The creek babbled softly beside them, washing away some of the dust and sweat of the night. Alara knelt to scoop water in her hands, giving Reed a sip. He drank slowly, tasting the clean cold water and letting it soothe the ache in his throat. They stayed in silence for a long moment. Reed finally broke it, saying that they could not remain here. The men would return. The cabin was no longer safe. Alara agreed. She had already packed a few essentials ready for the journey ahead. Reed looked at her closely. For the first time since he arrived at the cabin, he allowed himself to consider the possibility that he might not leave her side. The thought was strange and frightening. He had lived years believing trust and companionship were weaknesses. Now they seemed necessary. The wind shifted, carrying a faint scent of pine and smoke from the distant hills. Reed told her to stay low and move quietly. They followed the creek, winding along hidden paths only he knew. Every step reminded them of the danger behind and the uncertain future ahead. Alara finally asked him why he stayed instead of leaving when he could have. Reed hesitated but admitted he did not want to leave her alone in the cabin. She had risked everything to save him. He owed her more than his silence. By mid-morning, the creek opened into a small meadow. The sun warmed their faces. For the first time, the two could pause. They were tired, covered in dust and scratches, but alive. Reed let out a breath he had been holding for hours. Alara smiled quietly. It was a small gesture, but it carried hope. They had survived the night together. They had faced danger and fear and lived. And somewhere in the quiet of the dawn, Reed felt a strange comfort in knowing he was not alone. The ridge behind them held shadows of the men who chased them, but for now they were free. And as they moved forward along the creek, Reed and Alara began to imagine what life might be like when fear no longer dictated every step. The sun climbed higher, warming the creek and the small meadow where Reed and Alara finally paused. The air smelled of pine and wet earth, and for the first time in days the world felt calm. Birds sang tentatively from the trees as if testing the safety of the valley. Alara knelt beside the water and washed the dust from her hands. Reed stayed nearby, checking their gear and scanning the hills beyond. Neither spoke at first. The silence was comfortable. It carried the weight of survival but also the quiet promise of something new. Reed finally looked at her. He said that he had been running for too long, hiding from men who wanted him dead and from the mistakes he had made. He admitted that he had never trusted anyone fully and that life had taught him to expect betrayal. Alara listened without interruption. She did not judge. She did not turn away. She simply let him speak. And when he stopped, she told him that courage was not measured by battles won but by the strength to trust another person even after the world had broken you. Reed felt something shift inside him. For the first time, he believed that he could stand with someone not out of necessity but because he wanted to. That trust and companionship were not weaknesses but the strongest weapons he had. The creek sparkled in the sunlight as they followed it to a hidden path leading to a wider valley. Reed suggested they settle somewhere nearby where they could rest and prepare for whatever might come. Alara agreed. She had seen enough fear for one lifetime. She wanted a future where they could live without constant worry. They found a small clearing with flat grass and a few trees offering shade. Reed built a small fire while Alara prepared the area for their rest. They shared a simple meal in silence, letting the warmth of the fire and the calm of the valley soak into their bones. Reed finally spoke again. He said he had not expected to find anyone worth saving himself for. He had not expected to find someone who would change the way he saw the world. Alara smiled faintly, saying that perhaps sometimes life surprises even those who expect only misfortune. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, they sat together watching the shadows stretch across the valley. The danger that had hunted them was far behind. For the first time, Reed and Alara allowed themselves to imagine a life together. The wind carried the scent of pine and hope through the valley. And in the quiet of the afternoon, two people who had survived the worst the world could throw at them finally found a beginning in each other. They were free, they were alive, and for the first time they believed that love could grow even from the darkest of nights.